and welcome to Let's Chat. We'd like to thank our sponsors, River Valley Community Bank, for helping to make this show possible. I'm your host, Valerie Costa, and today we have Steve Hurley, the head of the Nevada County Democrats. Welcome, Steve.
That's right. My official title is chair. How about
Chair.
that? Yeah. Chair
of the Nevada County Democrats.
Yes, but I don't act alone. We have a vice chair. We have a treasurer. We have an executive team of about 6 individuals. And I'm happy to say that 3 former chairs are also in orbit. So I have lots of help, but of course we can always use more.
Of course, you're a nonprofit, is that correct?
Just like the other 150 or so in this community. And we try to be worthy of any volunteers we can beg, borrow, or steal.
So let's start with you. How did you get involved with Nevada County Democrats and politics in general?
Well, it was sort of in 2 phases. When I was a kid in high school, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in a very fraught time. We had, riots going on in Berkeley, the anti-war movement, free speech movement. And I found myself more attracted to what was going on out there than what was happening in my own high school. So an English teacher noticed that I was frequently absent and I was doing other things, and he began to feed me books that just talked about how societies were ordered in the present day and how they were ordered in the past, and just basically started feeding me a liberal arts curriculum. And that's when I made up my mind I wanted to go to college. It was through the intercession of an enlightened teacher in my high school who kind of recognized what my interests were and was able to diverge from the standard path, because I know I had.
Good teachers can make a world of difference. They really can. So then you decided to go to college, and did you major in political science?
Not at first. I went up to the North Coast to Humboldt State, and I was going to be a forestry major because I like backpacking. And my ideal job at that time would have been just to have a mule and go around in the backwoods and pick up trash for the U.S. Forest Service and go camping for the rest of my life. But what happened up there, because I had this particular radar toward politics, and I didn't recognize it at the time, in the time of the impeachment of Richard Nixon, that's when I was just a young lad, and I noticed that things were not the way they ought to be, that the rule of law was being called into question. Richard Nixon had, turns out, done criminal violations for which he was later pardoned. But just my instinct kicked in, like, this is important and I need to be paying attention. Well, what happened was a lady up there, a public relations professional, decided that our local congressperson, a Republican incumbent, needed to take a stand on the impeachment of Richard Nixon. And somehow I got involved in her campaign, and she ran in a Republican primary against her Republican incumbent. She didn't win, but what she did was so brilliant. He actually did end up taking a stand that, well, this guy violated the law, he needs to go. And she helped make him realize that the rule of law was more important than any other issue at the time, that without that you don't have anything. And that's the moment I switched my major to political science.
It's interesting how things kind of go in cycles, right? It seems like the issues that you're talking about from, was it the 70s?
Yeah, way back, fossil time.
I was born in the 70s.
There you go.
A baby fossil. But
73, 74.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that would be, 50 years ago? Yeah. And now we're kind of back in a similar situation in all fronts. So it makes you wonder about the nature of human nature and cyclical, the political cycle, the larger political cycle.
Yeah, even before the time of Nixon, every generation has to ensure the survival of democracy. My other reason for being engaged is my own parents. They were from the greatest generation. And the rule of law was threatened in that time as well. The Weimar Republic in Germany had turned toxic and became something other than the advanced democracy it had been. In a period of 4 or 5 years, the whole democracy was shredded. And, eventually America stepped into the war. England was about to be invaded, of course. And America stepped into the war, but it's always a game of inches. Politics is a game of inches. Every generation has to be involved. So in the case of my parents' generation, the game of inches was the last 12 flyable RAF fighters who deterred the Luftwaffe. The Germans were already on boats ready to invade England. If that had happened and that signature democracy had fallen, the whole world would have been in a new dark age. So between those RAF fighters, the brilliant leadership of Winston Churchill, by the way, he changed political parties twice. But between that, the fact that we got the bomb, the Allies got the atomic bomb a little bit ahead of the Germans, and then the breaking of the German and Japanese codes. That's what saved our democracy. The pardon of Richard Nixon saved it again. And Lord knows we'll come up on a future circumstance where, again, it'll only be the engagement of us people who will save the democracy one more time.
Well, that leads me to my next question perfectly. How do people get engaged with the democratic process in the macrocosm and in the micro? How do they get involved with the Nevada County Democrats?
Yes, we're going from the biggest picture of all, and any particular insight I might have had, to what's going on in Nevada County. That's actually not that big a leap. What we are here locally is primarily we're an electioneering organization. We're trolling for good candidates whom we can endorse, and then we help them get elected. And here locally, on this side of the Bear River, we just worry about what's going on locally, and I'm happy to say, at least during my tenure, we're very happy with just about every elected person so far. We just want to keep it that way. We figure it's ours to lose at this point. Even, I don't care if you're registered Democrat, Republican, Independent, as long as you're into good governance, then the local party wouldn't have a problem. We have other fish to fry and other things to worry about.
Yes, I think debate and compromise are good for community and the country, and it seems like that hasn't been working so well on the national scale, but I do see it working here in Nevada County. I've been here for 10 years, and I too am impressed with our local elected officials, no matter what side of where they fall in the political spectrum, because it seems to me that they really do have the best interest of the county at heart, and it's really nice to see. And I always harp on people, everyone wants to vote in the presidential election, and they should. But what's more important to you as an individual and your day-to-day life are those local elections. And so many people just kind of like wave those off. But one of the things I appreciate about your organization and other such organizations is that you really mobilize to get out the vote and make sure that everyone is engaging in the democratic process, because it's our civic duty. I feel very strongly about that. So you are a volunteer-run organization, that's correct?
Yes, nobody gets paid.
And you have how many volunteers?
Well, right now, between election cycles, when you consider all of our activists, we have about 100. And then amongst those, there's some differentiation. The local party has 6 in the executive committee. We meet once a month on Zoom. Then we have what we call the Democrat Central Committee, and that is a number of individuals from each of the supervisorial district. And we meet, the Democrat Central Committee meets at the Briar Patch at 6 p.m. the third Thursday of the month. And that's where we, pass resolutions, decide which candidates we might want to help out, and do the party business. And then beyond that, we have a core group of activists, and then some people who are in orbit that check in once in a while, totaling really no more than 100 or so maximum.
And so if somebody just wanted to be a run-of-the-mill volunteer and not like as actively involved as you or the executive committee are, what type of tasks might they be able to do as volunteers for the Nevada County Democrats?
Well, ideally, they're going to do something that they have talent for and would be passionate about, and that way they will endure in the longer term. So it's pretty much up to the individual. Some of the entry level things that we do are just we staff an office which is open year round. We might do some political outreach and organize events. There's the standard fare of texting folks, making phone calls, organizing fundraisers, just a number of letters to the editor, op-eds. We have a pretty good what we call the Writers Guild for people who want to express their opinions that are generally within the framework as agreeable to the bulk of the party. But, we have a range of opinions in the party, and I'm just very inspired by how well we all get along. But I want to get back to your point that the nonpartisan nature of local politics. One of the biggest things that I saw recently was this event put on by Sierra College in cooperation with the American Association of University Women and the League of Women Voters. They packed the house at Sierra College, and what was the subject? Depolarization. And I was there along with a number of our other Democrat leadership, and it was a great effort. They had these two entities on the stage simulating a Republican and simulating a Democrat, and then seeing how they could get along. Well, you know what? We'll see that and raise you one. I later went to an event at the League of Women Voters Christmas party, and I said, why are we simulating? Go find 3 local Republicans. We'll bring 3 local Dems, and let's do it for real.
Yeah.
Why can't we do it for real? That's the way politics used to be. Let's be transparent, open, and let's be passionate. Let's be passionate, and then we'll see how much we have in common. So, when Adam Schiff showed up, senatorial candidate that we hosted at the, the Grass Valley Center for the Arts, there were like 60 protesters across the street, right? So I know some of those people. I shop at the grocery store. I understand that they're concerned, and they really should be. And the Democrats aren't perfect, neither are the Republicans. So you know what? A couple of us went across the street. I know those organizers. I gave them a hug, and I said, you know what? When the Martians land, we'll realize how much we have in common. and you know what? Everybody relaxed. The body postures were tolerable. Nobody felt aggressive. I could just see them relax, and they were noticed, and they were acknowledged. And if we don't acknowledge the people who are discontent in this society, hey, I was a discontent youth, but let's do something positive about it. And that's going to come from all sides of the political spectrum if we're going to have a system that will endure.
I absolutely agree. And speaking of the Adam Schiff event, the only one left that you haven't had is Katie Porter, and I would really love to see her bring her whiteboard here. Will that be happening?
Yes, we've been trying. We reeled in two. Some of our activists, a few that were delegates to the state convention, and I can talk about the state stuff, but we'll save it for another time. But they were dogged, and they just basically accosted both Adam Schiff and Barbara Lee and said, "You have to come to Nevada County. We need to see you up here. You got to see who we are." And boy, they got 2 out of 3, but they're working on Katie. And to be fair, I really hope she makes it.
I do too. She's very entertaining in the clips that I see of her on the floor. So. And
the senatorial candidate who was a Republican, I don't remember his name conveniently, but and then our own congressperson Kevin Kiley, they did hold an event at the Alta Sierra Clubhouse. I think it was a month ago. So they're active in the community, and I would encourage anyone who's interested in politics to take a good look at both parties, decide where you belong, because even Obama said, we need a healthy 2-party system. And he's just so right. It's just a range. And I studied that in a formal sense, but I see it in person all the time. And some of my favorite people are registered Republicans in this county. Most notably, a lot of small contractors, for whatever reason, they're sensing the burden of government. It's in their lives too much. They see it on the street with all the rules and the regulations. Otherwise, I don't know why they're Republicans, but they are quite consistently. I can look them up. And so we have to address that. Why are so many of you Republicans? There's got to be a good reason.
Well, it's an interesting experiment, right? Because we have states like Texas and Florida that are run in a very Republican-dominated way, and then we have states like California and New York, or that are run in a very Democratic way, and I see issues with both. I think both sides of this issue, although I don't like to say both sides, but it's gotten to that. But they have a point about each party, and the extremism that happens on both sides. So I think that healthy two-party system, that balance, that compromise, that talking things out and finding that common ground is so important, and we're kind of losing that through this extreme partisan game that's being played, and for a myriad of reasons.
Well, we had it up until the 1980s. I happened to be in Washington, D.C. for 12 years. I was running a computer business back there, and I did deal with a lot of nonprofit trade and industry associations. But at the time I was there, that was the entree, right after the Reagan administration. A fellow by the name of Newt Gingrich came to the speakership, and that was the first sort of take no prisoners, we're not compromising kind of thing. And it's pretty much devolved from there. I could go on for an hour about Steve Hurley's theory of how it all came to this, but the point at this point is, what are we going to do about it? And it's going to take Democrats and Republicans and good, sensible politics. And what we have now, I think, is quite frightening, because, this country does have real adversaries. And to the degree that we become polarized and at each other's throats, that's going to play to the advantage of adversaries that we need to take very seriously, because they're on the ascendance, I'm afraid, while we're busy fiddling as Rome burns. And let's point to the ancients for a minute. I could go on for an hour about that, but all this has happened before. The idea of demagoguery, the idea of Athens versus Sparta, the Athenian state of philosophers, artists, and then the more militaristic Spartan state. There was truth in both these states, and they lived in very close proximity to each other, but they had a very different social order and set of values. We have a little bit of Athens and Sparta in our own politics now.
Oh, that's an interesting comparison that I hadn't seen before. So
you brought up human nature.
No, and yes, I see everything cyclical, but I hadn't taken it to that.
Well,
but that's very interesting.
It does go back that far.
That's great. I'm gonna ponder that, because I'm a political person myself.
You could probably take a class in it. Constitutional law would be another good class, because our founding fathers looked back on the ancients for the kind of wisdom to put together our own Constitution. Separation of church and state was a theme, and the separation of government. We had the legislative, the executive, what was the other one? Judiciary. All this was architected mostly through the experience of Greek and Rome. People don't know that, but they were all historians, and most of them classically educated. And I'm hoping our school system can get back to that. I was fortunate to receive some of that.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So if someone wants to get involved and help, come together and make the world a better place and make Nevada County a better place through your organization, how would they learn more, and how would they do so?
Well, here's the salesperson in me. We have to talk about the benefits if you do come and pay a little attention to us. First of all, you're going to be less lonely. If you're having political thoughts and most of your friends aren't interested, you're not alone, because you know what? There's 100,000 people in Nevada County, right? And there's maybe 100 of us altogether between election cycles. That's 1 in 1,000 people that are going to actually have the day-to-day concerns involve politics. And so it's rare but you won't be alone. You're going to make a lot of new friends, and you're going to be validated. A lot of people are feeling anxious these days. I'll tell you what, the minute you actually lift a finger and get involved and start to make a difference, first of all, you can, because there's only 100 of us. You could rise to prominence in no time. Trust me. It's wide open for you. Just show up. So that's the benefit. And how do we get a hold? Well, there's like 5 different ways, if I can name them. There is our website, NevadaCountyDemocrats.org, I think it is. We have a First Tuesday educational forum, first Tuesday of the month, right here at Nevada County Media.
How convenient.
Yeah, we meet at 6 p.m. You can come to a Democrat Central Committee meeting. Just show up. Third Thursdays at the Briar Patch Community Market in Grass Valley. That's at 6 p.m. We try and have everything at 6 p.m. because otherwise it's too confusing.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's like 3 or 4 ways. We also have an office at 1721 East Main Street in Grass Valley, and it's open pretty much all the time. You should give us a call first to make sure we're there, and that number is 530-802-5431.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I'm assuming as a nonprofit, you gladly accept donations.
Oh, yeah, that's another way. If you don't have time, then, yeah, we'll take your money because it just supports the local organization. And I do hope you come check us out. I guess the last thing I want to say, when I first got involved 8 years ago with the local Democrats, the party chair at the time said, Steve, the hardest thing you will ever do is ask anybody for their free time. And boy, has it turned out that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the thing we want from you, and I'll guarantee that you're going to get more than you give if you come check us out.
Well, and that is a perfect way to end this lovely chat. Thank you so much for being here today, Steve. And thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time.